"You're fired, Colton!" Wade's voice cut through the server room hum at 10:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, 3 days before our biggest launch ever, and this suit-wearing, nephew-hiring disaster just tossed 15 years of my life in the corporate trash can like yesterday's lunch. I'm Colton Pierce, 47 years old, ex-Marine turned lead systems architect at CoreFlow Industries. That fancy title means I'm basically the digital janitor, cleaning up messes left by MBA types who think the cloud is some magical place where data lives rent-free. I've been keeping this place running for 15 years, through 3 CEOs, 2 recessions, and more incompetent VPs than I can count on my bourbon-stained fingers. Wade Foster stood there in his $2,000 suit, checking his Apple Watch like he had reservations at some fancy steakhouse. The guy fails upward so fast he breaks physics. He smells like expensive cologne and unearned authority, with that dead-eyed smile that says he's about to destroy your life using corporate buzzwords. Effective immediately, he continued, not even looking at my screens where I'd been debugging code for Project Phoenix, the global integration that was supposed to automate our entire shipping network. Severance is standard. 2 weeks. Security's already coming up. My mortgage payment flashed through my head. $2,847 a month. My daughter's college tuition bill sitting on my kitchen counter. The health insurance I'd lose. At 47, getting fired isn't just career disruption, it's financial catastrophe. "You're firing me," I said, tasting copper in my mouth, 3 days before Phoenix launches. "Because why exactly?" "Culture fit," Wade said, straightening his tie. "You're too slow, Colton. Too methodical. You double-check everything, build redundancies for redundancies. We need agility." "Speed. My niece Lindsay thinks your protocols are legacy drag." Lindsay Foster, 24 years old, 8-week coding boot camp. Calls herself a digital transformation specialist on LinkedIn. The girl who asked me last week if Python was related to the snake exhibit at the zoo. Legacy drag? I stood up, my chair rolling back. "Wade, that drag is the firewall keeping every hacker from here to Moscow from turning our logistics network into their personal cryptocurrency mine." He held up a manicured hand. Actual manicure like some Wall Street prima donna. "Lindsay moves fast. She breaks things to fix them. That's the modern way. She's going to break the company. Heath will escort you out." Wade gestured to the doorway where Heath Lawson, our night security guard, stood looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Heath's a good guy. I bring him coffee every Friday, black with 1 sugar. He knows my ex-wife's name, asks about my daughter's soccer games. Now he had to march me out like some criminal." "I need to document the integration patch," I said, reaching for my keyboard. My screens showed the command line interface, green text on black, the language I speak better than English. The cursor blinked at the end of a critical command. "Don't touch company equipment," Wade snapped, his corporate mask slipping. "Lindsay takes over at 8 a.m. She'll handle integration." The absurdity hit me like ice water. Lindsay, the girl who thinks SQL stands for super quick language. She completed accelerated training. She's certified agile. I grabbed my truck keys from the desk, a worn Ford F-150 keychain, bought used 3 years ago when the divorce cleaned out my savings. Next to it sat my pack of Marlboros, my one remaining vice since I quit drinking Jack Daniels for breakfast. "You're making a mistake, Wade, a multi-million-dollar mistake. I'll take my chances with innovation over stagnation." I looked at my screens one final time. 3 monitors displaying the guts of Project Phoenix, code I'd written, debugged, refined over months of 60-hour weeks. The integration layer that connected shipping centers from Los Angeles to Shanghai, managing everything from frozen pharmaceuticals to live lobsters. One misplaced command could crash the entire network. I didn't save my work. I didn't commit the changes. I just reached over and turned off the monitors, leaving my final patch uncommitted in system memory, like leaving a loaded gun on the table. "You sure about this, Wade?" "Completely. Now please, you're making a scene." There was nobody else in the office to see any scene, but in Wade's corporate fantasy, he was already rehearsing this story for the board. How he trimmed the fat. How he ushered in a new era of youthful innovation. I walked past Heath. "It's okay, buddy. Just doing your job." "I'm sorry, Colton," Heath mumbled, his face flushed. "I really am. Not your fault the circus came to town." The elevator ride down felt like a descent into corporate hell. Brushed steel walls and the smell of industrial disinfectant. Heath stood in the corner trying to make himself invisible. I didn't blame him. Guy was just trying to pay for his kids' braces and his wife's medical bills. I was the one carrying the cardboard box of career suicide. When the elevator opened in the lobby, I expected to be escorted straight to the parking garage. But Wade, in his infinite corporate wisdom, had forgotten that my access card was still up on my desk. The same card I needed to get my truck out of the employee garage. Heath, I need my access card, unless you want me to ram the parking gate with my F-150. Heath looked panicked. I'll go get it. I'll go, I said, left it right next to the server keys. We went back up. This time, the elevator opened to a completely different scene. The midnight quiet was gone, replaced by music, that soulless electronic pop that sounds like robots having anxiety attacks. And there, sitting in my ergonomic chair at my workstation, was Lindsay Foster. She looked like she'd been assembled in a factory that produces social media influencers. Perfect hair, perfect nails, perfect ignorance. She'd pushed my dual monitor setup aside to make room for her MacBook covered in stickers. Girl boss, coffee, and code. Disrupt everything. What stopped my heart wasn't the stickers. It was my main screen. The launch console was open, but the command prompt I'd abandoned was gone, replaced by the vendor's shiny dashboard. The graphical interface I never used because it was about as reliable as a chocolate transmission. And there, pulsing in the corner like a digital tumor, was a red warning bar. Database sharding. Manual override active. "Oh my God, is this Colton?" Lindsay chirped, spinning around in my chair like some kid at Chuck E. Cheese. She didn't look guilty about destroying my life's work. She looked excited, like she was meeting a celebrity. "Wade said you were leaving. Totally bummer energy, but hey, fresh starts, right?" I stared at that red warning bar pulsing on my screen like a digital heartbeat. "Lindsay," I said, voice deadly calm, "what did you do to the database sharding protocols?" She giggled. Actually giggled, like I'd asked about her favorite boy band. Oh, that kept giving me these super annoying pop-up warnings about latency and integrity checks. So I just turned off the notifications. "It's running so much faster now. Look at this loading bar go." My blood turned to ice water. She hadn't just turned off notifications. She'd disabled the load balancing inhibitors, the safety systems that kept our database from eating itself alive. It was like removing the brakes from a semi-truck because they made the ride feel sluggish. "That's not speed," I said, gripping my access card so hard the plastic edges cut into my palm. "That's a memory leak. You're flooding the cache with garbage data." "You're being so negative," she sighed, rolling those perfectly mascaraed eyes. "Wade said you were a total downer. Look, I'm just optimizing the user experience for tomorrow's launch. Think of it as preheating the oven." "You're not preheating the oven, Lindsay. You're setting the entire kitchen on fire." Heath touched my shoulder. "Colton, we really need to go. Security protocols." I looked at Lindsay, already back to scrolling through her phone, probably updating her LinkedIn about crushing another late-night innovation session. She had no clue. She was sitting on a digital nuclear bomb, using the detonator as a fidget spinner. I did the math in my head, a skill they don't teach in 8-week boot camps. The cache would fill completely in about 8 minutes. The database would try to write to locked memory addresses. Then the transaction logs would corrupt. Then Project Phoenix would die a very public, very expensive death right as Asian markets opened for business. $200,000 per minute of downtime. $30 million in spoiled pharmaceutical shipments sitting in refrigerated containers. Trucks idling at docks from Shanghai to Rotterdam with no routing data. But hey, at least the loading screens would look trendy while the company burned. I turned around, without saying another word. No point explaining quantum physics to a hamster. Back in the elevator, Heath stood quietly in the corner while I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Preston Walsh's contact, the CEO, the guy who built CoreFlow from a single delivery truck in his Phoenix garage 20 years ago. He wasn't a tech genius, but he was a logistics guy, someone who understood that moving things from point A to point B required precision, not personality. I checked the time. 10:58 p.m. The system would start its death spiral in exactly 8 minutes. I typed with the precision of a Marine sniper. System crashes in 8 minutes, Asian markets in 3 hours. Good luck with the fresh thinking. Hit send. 3 dots appeared immediately, then Preston's reply. Don't leave the building. I stopped dead in the middle of the marble lobby. The revolving door was right there. Freedom, unemployment, a bottle of Maker's Mark, and a long conversation with my divorce lawyer about missed alimony payments. But my phone buzzed again. I'm 5 minutes out. Wait for me. Heath, I said, setting my box down on the expensive Italian leather couch. I think I'm going to sit here for a minute. Technically, you're trespassing now, Colton. Technically, Heath, I'm the only person in this zip code who knows how to stop what's about to happen. And in about 6 minutes, Wade's going to find out why legacy systems exist in the first place. It started subtly, like most disasters do. A flicker on the giant monitor behind the reception desk, the one displaying our global shipping network in real time. Usually it's a beautiful web of green lines connecting continents, pulsing with live cargo data. At 11:04 p.m., those green lines started stuttering. Ashley Reynolds, the night receptionist, frowned at her workstation. That's weird. My email just froze up. I knew exactly why her email froze. Our Exchange server shares back-end storage clusters with the logistics database, a cost-cutting measure I'd warned against 3 years ago. Wade said fixing it was unnecessary infrastructure spending. Well, Wade, hope you like communicating via smoke signals. At 11:05 p.m., the phone system started its death scream. Not ringing, shrieking. The entire switchboard lit up like a Christmas tree in a house fire. Ashley grabbed a line. Core Flow Industries, hello? Hello, sir, I can't hear you. There's just static. She looked at Heath with wide, panicked eyes. All the lines are dead. It's just noise. VIP crash, I whispered to myself. When the database locks up, it strangles network bandwidth like a hand around a throat. Voice packets are the first thing thrown overboard when the digital ship starts sinking. Then came the sound of panic. Muffled thuds echoing from the stairwell. Someone was sprinting down 20 floors because the elevators were too slow for catastrophe. The stairwell door burst open like a breached hull, and Shane Sullivan stumbled out, our junior dev, good kid, chronic asthmatic, looking like he'd just witnessed the digital apocalypse. Heath, Shane screamed, ignoring protocol entirely. Heath, is Colton still here? Please tell me Colton's still here. Heath pointed at me. Shane ran over, sweating through his vintage Star Wars t-shirt like he'd just finished a marathon in Death Valley. Colton. Oh God, it's all gone. It's completely gone. What's gone, Shane? I asked, checking my fingernails like I was discussing the weather. The entire staging environment just collapsed. Lindsay hit something and everything turned red. The backups aren't mounting. The master database nodes are rejecting authentication keys. It's like the system is eating itself from the inside out. Sounds like a permissions cascade failure, I said calmly. Did someone disable the safety interlocks to improve performance? Shane's face went ghost white. She said they were creating unnecessary friction in the user workflow. Imagine that. You have to come up, Colton, please. Wade's screaming at everyone. Lindsay's locked herself in the server room crying. Asian distribution centers are calling every 30 seconds asking why their systems are down. If we're still offline when markets open, we lose about $200,000 a minute in operational revenue, I finished for him. Plus liability for spoiled shipments, regulatory fines, client contract violations. Rough night for Wade's quarterly performance review. Please, Colton. I'll do anything. I can't help you, Shane. I was terminated for being too slow. I'm officially a security risk now. Heath, am I authorized to access company systems? Heath shook his head vigorously. Strict orders. Immediate escort off premises. There you go. I shrugged. My hands are tied, and my severance package definitely didn't include emergency technical support. That's when the revolving door spun with authority, bringing a gust of cold Phoenix air and the unmistakable presence of a man used to fixing problems with his bare hands. Preston Walsh walked in like a force of nature. Preston Walsh didn't look like the billionaire CEO from magazine covers. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, and he was holding his phone like it contained launch codes for nuclear missiles. He ignored the screaming switchboard, ignored Shane hyperventilating, ignored Ashley frantically trying to restart her computer. He walked straight to me with the focused intensity of a man who'd built an empire from truck routes and shipping schedules. You knew this would happen, he said, his voice like gravel in a cement mixer. I predicted it, I corrected, standing up from the leather couch. There's a difference between magic and 15 years of reading system logs that everyone else ignores. How bad is it? Catastrophic. Lindsay just poured gasoline on an electrical fire while standing in a puddle of water. Preston rubbed his face with both hands, suddenly looking every one of his 58 years. Can you fix it? I picked up my cardboard box, balancing it against my hip. That depends, Preston. Are we talking about fixing the servers or fixing the management virus that infected them? The virus? The virus named Wade Foster. The malware named nephew-hiring. The security breach called moving fast and breaking things. The lobby fell silent except for the distant wailing of phones and the hum of emergency lighting that had kicked in when the main systems failed. Even Ashley had stopped trying to answer calls that were nothing but digital static. Walk with me, Preston said. The executive elevator was different from the worker bee lifts. It glided instead of jerking, had real wood paneling instead of industrial plastic, and smelled like vanilla air freshener instead of industrial disinfectant. Preston stood with his back against the corner, watching the floor numbers climb like he was timing a bomb. Wade told me you were burnt out, he said as we passed the 10th floor. Said you were resisting innovation. Called you legacy dead weight that was dragging down the team's velocity. Wade thinks innovation means vaping in the server room while his niece deletes critical system files. I pulled out my battered notebook, coffee-stained, held together with electrical tape filled with 3 years of ignored warnings. I'm not burnt out, Preston. I'm the only one in this building who actually reads the documentation. The elevator opened onto the executive floor where chaos had replaced the usual corporate serenity. People were running down hallways with laptops and stacks of paper. Someone's printer was making the sound of a dying goose. Through the glass walls, I could see the IT command center where screens displayed nothing but error messages in angry red text. Preston led me into his corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Phoenix, mahogany desk that probably cost more than my truck, and the kind of leather chair that screams I've arrived. He slammed the door, cutting off the noise from outside. What do you know that they don't? He asked. Everything that actually works. I dropped my notebook onto his desk with a satisfying thud, the sound of competence hitting expensive wood. What is this? Project Phoenix Risk Assessment, Complete Disaster Scenarios and Mitigation Strategies. I tried to present this to Wade 3 weeks ago. He said the meeting time would be better spent discussing brand synergy for customer-facing interfaces. Preston opened the notebook, his eyes scanning pages of my handwritten analysis, chicken scratch mixed with technical diagrams and flowcharts. Page 12, I directed. Section titled, Catastrophic Failure Scenarios. He flipped to page 12, read for 30 seconds, then looked up at me like I was some kind of prophet. You predicted exactly what just happened. I predicted that putting an unqualified person with administrative access into a critical system would result in them disabling safety protocols to make pretty dashboards load faster. Lindsay was just the specific flavor of incompetence. Could have been anyone with 8 weeks of training and unlimited confidence. He closed the notebook and set it down carefully. The system's completely black, Colton. Main dashboard is dead. Asian distribution centers are sending panicked emails asking why their routing systems are returning 404 errors. We've got refrigerated trucks sitting at docks in Shanghai and Long Beach with $30 million worth of pharmaceuticals that need constant temperature monitoring. I know, I said, lighting a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs plastered everywhere. I designed those monitoring systems. Insulin shipments start degrading in 2 hours without proper data logging. Frozen biologics get flagged as medical waste if temperature chains are broken for more than 4 hours. You're looking at liability lawsuits that'll make your insurance company weep. Preston walked to his windows, staring out at the city lights like he was watching his empire crumble in real time. Wade showed me Lindsay's credentials. Portfolio of projects. Called her a digital transformation specialist. He showed you a website that certifies people in agile methodologies for $299. The same place that'll ordain you as an online minister or sell you a degree in underwater basket weaving. I took a long drag, feeling the nicotine steady my nerves. Preston, you built this company by moving physical things from one place to another. You know that if you put diesel fuel in a gasoline engine, it dies. You just let Wade pour sugar in our gas tank because the person pouring had the right last name. His reflection in the window looked older than the man who'd walked into the lobby 10 minutes ago. Fix it. No. I'll double your salary. No. Triple it. Plus equity. Plus whatever you want. I laughed, a sound like rusty metal scraping concrete. Preston, you still don't get it. This isn't about money. This is about respect. You let them humiliate me in front of my own team. You let them walk me out of here like some corporate criminal because I was too slow to appreciate the beauty of deleting safety systems. You handed a loaded weapon to a child because she was family. What do you want? I crushed my cigarette in his expensive crystal ashtray. I want the weapon, and I want the people who armed the child to face consequences. You want me to fire Wade and Lindsay? I want them gone. Publicly. Tonight. With full acknowledgement of what they did. Before I touch a single line of code. Wade's been with me for 8 years. He's VP of operations. I can't just then start shopping for industrial refrigeration units. I cut him off. Because you're going to need somewhere to store $30 million worth of spoiled inventory, while you explain to the FDA why your temperature monitoring systems were disabled by someone who thinks SSL certificates are too slow. Preston turned away from the window. His phone was buzzing constantly now. Alerts, emergency calls, board members who'd been woken up by automated disaster notifications. The weight of decision was written across his face like a roadmap of corporate crisis. "Okay," he whispered. "I didn't hear you." "Okay," he shouted, loud enough to be heard through the office walls. "You win. Fix the system. I'll handle Wade and Lindsay." I picked up my notebook, tucking it under my arm like a general claiming victory. Get me root access to everything. And get me coffee that doesn't taste like it was filtered through a gym sock. Preston moved like a man possessed. He grabbed his desk phone. The landline was the only communication system still working reliably, and barked an order that cut through the corporate chaos. Security override. Executive authorization. Restore full system credentials for user Colton P01. Authorization code Alpha Zulu 9. Do it now. He slammed the phone down and looked at me like he'd just signed a deal with the devil. "You're live." "Not yet," I said, crushing my cigarette in his crystal ashtray. "I need the war room, the main server hub, and I need it empty. I don't work with audiences, especially audiences that think turning things off and on again constitutes advanced troubleshooting." We walked down the hallway where emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie yellow glow. Through the glass walls of the IT command center, I could see the aftermath of Lindsay's digital kamikaze mission. Wade was red-faced, screaming at screens displaying nothing but critical error messages. Lindsay sat in the corner, sobbing into her hands, finally understanding that breaking things doesn't automatically fix them. The rest of my team, Shane, Nicole Parker, Bryce Montgomery, stood around looking like survivors of a technological apocalypse. Preston pushed open the heavy doors, and the room's air conditioning hit us like walking into a meat locker. The servers were running hot, working overtime to process corrupted data requests in infinite loops. "Wade," Preston's voice echoed off the server racks. Wade spun around, relief washing over his face when he saw the CEO, then curdling into confusion when he spotted me behind Preston. "Preston, thank God. We've been hit by some kind of sophisticated cyber attack. This has Russian fingerprints all over it. And what's he doing here? I had security escort him out." "He's here because you're an incompetent disaster, Wade," Preston said, his voice deadly quiet. "And this wasn't a cyber attack. This was your niece playing with systems she doesn't understand." The server room went silent except for the whir of cooling fans working overtime to keep overheating processors from melting down. "Excuse me?" Wade sputtered. "You're relieved of duty. Both of you. Get out. Preston, you can't be serious. This is a crisis situation. We need experienced leadership. We need a surgeon." Preston cut him off. "You two are the cancer. Now get out before I have security drag you out." Lindsay looked up from her crying session. Mascara streaked down her cheeks like digital tears. "But Uncle Wade said I was revolutionizing the infrastructure paradigm." "Kid," I said, stepping forward, my voice cutting through her delusion like a blade through butter, "if you touch one more piece of equipment in this building, I'll personally ensure you never work with anything more complex than a toaster for the rest of your natural life." Wade saw the notebook under my arm, saw the look in my eyes, and finally realized that his MBA buzzword arsenal was useless here. This was the engine room of a digital empire, and he was just a passenger who'd been pretending to be the captain. "You'll hear from my attorney," Wade spat as he headed for the door. "And you'll hear from the SEC when they investigate how you let an unqualified relative destroy critical infrastructure. Preston replied. Now get out. Wade stormed out, dragging the still sobbing Lindsay behind him. Her influence career was over before her first real paycheck cleared. I looked at my team, Shane, Nicole, Bryce, good people who'd been forced to watch incompetence destroy months of their work. All right, show's over, I announced, rolling up my sleeves. Shane, get me a direct terminal connection. Nicole, kill all external gateway connections. We're going dark for exactly 5 minutes. Bryce, start mirroring the transaction logs to our backup sandbox, but don't try to parse them yet. Just raw data transfer. Going dark means the tracking APIs fail completely, Nicole said, her voice shaking. They've already failed, I replied, sitting down at the main console that Lindsay had abandoned. Right now we're just stopping the bleeding before we can stitch up the wounds. I pulled a disinfectant wipe from my pocket. Keyboards are disgusting, especially ones that have been touched by incompetent hands, and cleaned every key before I started typing. Preston, I said without turning around, you might want to cover your ears. I'm about to violate roughly 14 corporate IT policies to bypass the security locks your niece-in-law created. Just fix it, he said. I cracked my knuckles like a pianist preparing for Carnegie Hall and lit another cigarette. You can't smoke in here, Shane squeaked. The fire suppression system. Disable the smoke detectors, Shane, I said, taking a long drag. The grown-ups are working. The main screen was a museum of digital disasters. Red text everywhere, fatal exceptions cascading like a waterfall of corporate failure. Lindsay had somehow managed to force our multi-threaded database architecture into single-thread execution mode. It was like trying to funnel Niagara Falls through a drinking straw. Listen up, I commanded, ash falling onto the console like snow on a battlefield. We're doing emergency surgery on a patient that's technically dead. Shane, I need those transaction logs mirrored to the sandbox environment. Don't try to parse or validate, just dump everything raw. Copy that, Shane said, his fingers flying across his keyboard. Nicole, manually lock down the Asian distribution nodes. Send them maintenance mode flags. It's completely false, but it'll buy us 10 minutes before they start calling the State Department. Maintenance flags sent, Nicole, confirmed. I turned my attention to the core database cluster. It was thrashing like a dying animal, writing and rewriting the same corrupted data blocks in an endless loop of digital agony. Sometimes you have to kill the patient to save it. Opening root command terminal, I announced. The black screen with the white cursor appeared, my oldest friend in the digital world. I typed the command that would either save the company or finish destroying it. Sudo kill all, 9 chop. You're killing the master process, Bryce gasped. That's digital suicide. It's a defibrillator, I muttered. Sometimes you have to stop the heart to restart it properly. Clear. I hit enter. Every screen in the room went black. The server fans spun down to almost nothing. The room fell into a silence so complete you could hear people's heartbeats. Did we just delete the entire company? Shane whispered. Wait for it, I said, taking a drag of my cigarette. Come on, you beautiful piece of engineering. I built you better than this. Suddenly, like the sun breaking through storm clouds, a single line of green text appeared on the main monitor. System reboot initiated. Checking integrity. Legacy failsafe protocol detected. Colton is paranoid v4.2. What is that? Preston asked, stepping closer to the screens. That, I said, pointing at the text with my cigarette like a conductor's baton, is the so-called legacy drag that Wade wanted to eliminate. It's a complete ghost image of our entire system that I've been secretly creating every 6 hours for the past 3 years. Slow to generate, invisible to casual users, and completely immutable. Lindsay couldn't delete what she never knew existed. Green text began cascading down the screens like digital rain. Restoring database tables, 35%, 67%, 89%. Shane, prepare to reopen the external gateway on my mark, I commanded. When this hits 100%, we're going to get hit with a tsunami of backlogged requests. Ready and waiting, Shane confirmed. Restore complete. All systems nominal. Mark! Shane hit his key sequence. Every screen in the room exploded back to life. The global shipping map flickered back online, showing green lines connecting every continent. Pending orders spiked vertically as the system processed hours of backlogged requests in seconds, then leveled off into normal operational parameters. The collective sigh of relief from my team was audible over the server fans. We're stable, Nicole announced, sounding like she might cry from relief. All systems green. Latency is actually better than it was before the crash. Because I flushed 3 years of accumulated garbage from the cache while we were down, I explained. Sometimes the only way to clean a system is to turn it off and start over. I spun my chair around to face Preston, who was staring at the restored displays like he'd just witnessed a digital resurrection. Systems fixed, I announced. Your trucks are getting routing data, your pharmaceuticals are being monitored, and your shareholders won't be lynching you in this morning. The emergency board meeting at 7 a.m. was a sterile affair. Gray suits, nervous energy, and the kind of corporate damage control that happens when disasters get averted at the last possible second. Preston sat at the head of the polished conference table with me at his right hand. I wasn't wearing a suit, just my work clothes and the satisfaction of a man who'd just pulled a company back from the brink. The crisis has been resolved, Preston announced to the assembled board members, thanks to the expertise of our new Chief Security Officer, Colton. Every head in the room turned toward me. They didn't see a middle-aged, divorced guy with coffee stains on his shirt. They saw the man who held the keys to their digital kingdom. Mr. Pierce, the board chairman, said, "Can you guarantee this won't happen again?" "As long as I have oversight of all system changes and personnel decisions affecting critical infrastructure," I replied. "Nobody touches the core systems without my explicit authorization. We're going back to a stability-first operational model. No more trendy solutions, just proven engineering." They nodded like bobblehead dolls. Proven engineering made money. Trendy solutions apparently lost it. I walked out of that meeting with a title that commanded respect, a salary that looked like a phone number, and security clearance that opened every door in the building. But more importantly, I walked out with something Wade's nepotism could never buy. The knowledge that competence, patience, and 15 years of experience had triumphed over corporate politics and trendy buzzwords. Back in my server room, my domain, my kingdom, I sat in my old chair and pulled up the system logs one final time. Everything glowed green and healthy. The digital heartbeat of global commerce was strong and steady. Trucks were rolling, ships were sailing, and somewhere in Shanghai, refrigerated pharmaceuticals were maintaining perfect temperature control because I'd built the systems right the first time. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the bottle of Maker's Mark I kept for special occasions. This qualified. I poured 2 fingers into my coffee mug and raised it toward the monitors showing 100% system uptime. "Too slow, my ass," I whispered to the humming servers. "Turns out slow and steady doesn't just win the race. It keeps the whole damn world running." Wade and Lindsay learned that lesson the hard way. Sometimes that's the only way some people learn.